She was 33 weeks pregnant, standing in her own closet, holding another woman's blouse, a size 4, red satin, folded neatly between her maternity dresses like it belonged there, like it had always belonged there. Her husband had built a $12 billion empire. He had bought her a 7,000 square foot home on Lakeshore Drive. He had held her hand when she told him she was pregnant and said, "This is the best day of my life." And then, 4 weeks later, he started planning her removal. Not just the affair, not just the lies. A shell company, hidden accounts. $4.7 million quietly moved into the shadows while she was choosing nursery paint colors, while she was reading baby names out loud to him in bed. But here is what he did not count on. She was not just a pregnant wife. She was a woman who knew how to read a room.
A woman who had been quietly watching, quietly building, quietly gathering every single piece of evidence he thought she would never find. And when the moment came, she did not scream. She did not beg. She got organized. This is the story of Caroline Ashford and what happens when a billionaire makes the biggest mistake of his life. Stay with us, because the ending will surprise you. Lesson statement. Before we begin, if this story finds you in a moment when you're questioning what you know, when someone is making you feel like the problem, when you're holding something in your hands and being told you did not see what you saw, we want you to hear this. You are not crazy. You always knew. And the moment you trust that, everything changes. If this story speaks to you, if you know someone who needs to hear it, please share it with them today. The like takes 1 second and tells us this kind of storytelling matters to you. A comment tells us you were here, and we read every single one. Subscribe so you never miss a story, because we have more coming, and some of them will change the way you see your own life. We are building something here, and we are building it for you.
The thud came first, a cardboard box hitting marble. That was the sound that changed everything. Not a crash, not a shatter, just a soft, heavy thud, like something landing where it did not belong. Caroline Ashford stood in the walk-in closet of her home on Lakeshore Drive and stared at the red satin blouse folded between her maternity dresses. She did not move. The silk was the color of a warning. Bright, deliberate, a size 4. She was not a size 4. She had not been a size 4 in years. She was 31 years old, 33 weeks pregnant, and standing in a closet that smelled faintly of someone else's perfume. God. It's been here all along. She held the blouse at arm's length. Her hands were steady. That surprised her. She had always assumed that when this moment came, and somewhere deep and quiet, she had always known it would come. Her hands would shake. They did not shake. Today was supposed to be her baby shower. Stella had been planning it for 3 months. The pale yellow tablecloths, the little bee centerpieces, Caroline's absolute refusal to have a gender reveal canon, which had led to a 40-minute debate and ultimately a compromise involving lemon cake. Her mother, Dot, was driving 2 hours from Clearwater. The bassinet in the nursery down the hall still had the price tag on it. Grant had promised to be home by noon. It was 8:47 in the morning. Caroline Ashford's marriage was ending before she had finished her prenatal vitamin. She sat down on the edge of the closet bench, slowly and carefully. The way pregnant women learn to do everything. She draped the blouse across her knees. The silk was cold against her palms. This is real, she told herself. This is real. This is real. She did not search the closet. She did not need to. Now that she was looking, really looking, the closet told her everything. A second phone charger tucked behind a shoebox that she had assumed was a spare. A gym bag shifted slightly to the left of where it always sat. A bottle of cologne she had never purchased, still in its box, pushed behind Grant's dress shoes. The details assembled themselves like a case file. Caroline had worked as a landscape architect before the pregnancy. She was a person who read environments. She understood how small shifts in placement revealed intent. She had designed spaces for a living. She knew what it meant when things were moved. She saw it now in the geometry of her own closet. Someone had been here. Someone had been here often enough to develop a system. She checked her phone 3 times. Lock, unlock, lock, unlock, lock. No messages from Grant. She set the blouse on the bench. She picked up her phone again and put it face down on her thigh. The baby kicked, hard, right up under her ribs, like a reminder. I know, she thought. I know. She did not call Stella. She did not call her mother. Instead, she sat very still in the closet of the 7,000 square foot home she had helped design, the built-in shelving she had specified, the custom lighting she had chosen, the herringbone floor she had argued for, over Grant's preference for something more ordinary. And she breathed, in, out, in, out. The house was quiet around her. February light came through the bedroom windows in long, flat angles, the color of old photographs. Somewhere downstairs, the refrigerator hummed. Outside, a car passed on the street. She could hear her own heartbeat. 40 minutes later, Grant's car pulled into the driveway. She heard the engine. She heard the door. She heard his footsteps on the stairs. That particular rhythm she had memorized over 6 years of marriage, the confident, unhurried pace of a man who had never truly been told no. He appeared in the closet doorway. His eyes went immediately to the red blouse folded across her knees. In the half-second before his expression arranged itself into something rehearsed, she saw the thing she had been afraid to see for months. He knew she would find it eventually. He had always known. Caroline, don't, she said. Her voice was quieter than she expected. Just don't do the face. What face? The face you make when you're deciding which version of the truth to tell me. A long silence filled the room. Grant Ashford was a beautiful man. That had always been part of the problem. He carried his success like a second skin. He was the kind of man who made rooms rearrange themselves around him. At 38, he had the easy confidence of someone who had never truly been told no. He had built Ashford Meridian Group from a single commercial property into a $12 billion real estate empire. He was accustomed to complicated negotiations with clean outcomes. He was looking at his pregnant wife holding another woman's blouse, and for the first time in their marriage, he seemed to understand there was no clean outcome here. Her name is Vivian, he said. She works for the company. Caroline laughed. It surprised both of them. I know who she is, Grant. She presented the Q3 marketing report at your holiday party. I sat across from her at dinner. She told me she loved my earrings. Caroline. How long? He looked at the window. 8 months. The number landed like a physical thing. 8 months. She was 4 weeks pregnant when it started. She remembered being 4 weeks pregnant. She remembered calling him from the bathroom, the test in her hand, her voice breaking with happiness. She remembered the way he held her. She remembered believing, completely and without reservation, that they were beginning something. The baby kicked again. 8 months. She did not say anything. She did not need to. She simply set the red blouse on the shelf, exactly where she had found it, stood up with effort, and walked out of the closet, past him into the hallway. Caroline, wait. I have a baby shower in 3 hours, she said, without turning around. You should leave before my mother gets here. She stopped at the bedroom door. Grant, is she pregnant too? The pause before he answered was just long enough to be its own answer. No, he said. But the pause was already inside her. The pause would be there for weeks. She closed the door. She stood on the other side of it, in the hallway, with her back against the wood and her hand flat on her stomach. The baby shifted. She felt the particular pressure of a small knee or elbow rearranging itself somewhere under her ribs. Okay, she thought. One thing at a time. The shower is in 3 hours. Mom is already on the highway. Stella has been planning this for 3 months. There are bee decorations. Caroline Ashford straightened her spine. She walked to the bathroom, turned on the shower, and stepped into the steam. She checked her phone one more time before she did. Lock, unlock, lock. No messages from Grant. She set it face down on the counter. One thing at a time, she told herself again. One thing at a time. She dressed carefully. The pale green wrap dress. The earrings she had been saving for the occasion. Small gold bees that Stella had given her at Christmas. A little mascara. Concealer under her eyes where the sleeplessness had settled in the weeks before today, before she had understood exactly why she had not been sleeping. She arranged her face into something resembling calm. When her mother Dot arrived at 11:45, arms full of casserole dishes and pink grocery bags, in the particular energy of a woman who had been awake since 5 in the morning out of excitement, she set everything down on the kitchen counter and took one long look at her daughter. What happened? Dot said. Nothing, Mom. Grant had to take a call. Dot was 58 years old. She was built like someone who had survived things. Silver-streaked hair cut practical and short. Hands that had held a job and a daughter and a difficult situation simultaneously for most of Caroline's childhood. She had the particular radar of a woman who had raised a daughter alone after a bad marriage of her own, and that radar had never once failed her. She did not push, but she watched. The baby shower was beautiful. Stella had truly outdone herself. The bee centerpieces sat in the middle of every table. The tablecloths were the exact pale yellow they had agreed upon after 45 minutes of looking at fabric swatches on a Sunday afternoon. The cucumber sandwiches were cut into triangles, which was Caroline's specific request, and the lemon cake was 3 tiers and perfect. 14 women filled the sunroom. Everyone cooed over the gifts. Someone made a joke about stretch marks, and everyone laughed. Caroline received a hand-sewn quilt from Grant's cousin that had taken 3 months to make, and she held it against her chest and said thank you and meant it completely. She did not check her phone, not once. She had decided that for these 3 hours she would be present. She would accept every tiny striped onesie and every organic product and every piece of advice with genuine gratitude because this baby was real, and the love in this room was real, and she refused to let Grant take this afternoon from her too. Stella caught her eye across the room. Stella Mercer was 33 years old, a family law paralegal who had seen enough bad marriages to recognize the architecture of one from across a sunroom. She mouthed 2 words. You okay? Caroline gave the smallest nod that could technically be classified as a yes. After the last guest left and the casserole dishes were wrapped in foil and her mother was loading leftover cake into the car, Stella cornered Caroline in the kitchen. She closed the door behind her. She leaned against the counter and crossed her arms and waited. Tell me, she said, and Caroline did. All of it. The blouse, the cologne in the box, 8 months, the pause before he said no. She told it in the flat, factual way of someone who had not yet allowed herself to fully feel it. The way you describe a car accident to a police officer, the sequence of events, the specific details, the outcome. When she finished, Stella was quiet for a long moment. "Honey," Stella said finally, "I need to tell you something. I've been biting my tongue for 2 months." She paused. "I saw him at Riva on a Tuesday night. He was with a woman, and it was not a business dinner." The room tilted slightly. "You didn't tell me," Carolyn said. "I didn't have proof. And you were 26 weeks pregnant." Stella's eyes were wet. What was I supposed to do? Hand you that? What would that have done to you at 26 weeks with no proof? Stella? "I'm so sorry, Caroline. I should have found a way. I should have told you and let you decide." Carolyn sat down at the kitchen island. The marble was cool under her hands. "He came home that night and I made him pasta," she said. "I remember exactly because he said it was too salty. Caroline?" "He ate my pasta and told me it was too salty, and he had just left her." She paused. "I threw the rest away. I thought I was losing my sense of taste because of the pregnancy." Dot appeared in the doorway. She looked at their faces. She pulled up a stool. "All right," she said. "Tell me." It took 40 minutes. Dot did not interrupt once. She sat with her hands folded on the counter, and her jaw set in that particular way it gets when she has decided something must be handled and will not rest until it is. When Caroline finished, Dot said, "You're not staying in this house. Mom, I'm 33 weeks pregnant. I'm not going anywhere tonight." "Then he is. It's his house. It's your home." "There's a difference," Caroline said quietly, "and I think that's been the problem all along." Grant did not come home that night. He did not come home the next morning either. When he finally called at 9 the following day, his voice had the careful neutrality of a man who had been coached. "We need to talk about next steps," he said. "I agree," she said. "I've asked Vivian to come to the house on Thursday. I think the three of us should sit down and have a civilized conversation about—" "I am going to stop you there," Caroline said. "You want to bring your mistress to my home to have a conversation with your pregnant wife. Our home. And she is not— It is more complicated than— Grant," she took a slow breath, "I am going to ask you one question, and I need you to answer it honestly, not for me, for the fact that I am carrying your child, and I deserve one honest answer from you." She paused. "Do you love her?" The silence stretched. The clock ticked, ticked, ticked. "Yes," he said. "I think I do." She ended the call. She sat in the silence of the kitchen for exactly 4 minutes. She counted them. Then she called Stella. "I need the name of the best divorce attorney in Chicago," she said, "and I need it before Thursday." Stella was quiet for one beat. Then she said, "Caroline, before you call anyone, you need to know it's something about the house." The kitchen went very still. "Tell me," Caroline said. "I'm not crazy," she thought, in the silence before Stella spoke. "I know what I saw. I have always known what I saw. Whatever comes next, I know that." Stella explained it on the phone, and it took Caroline approximately 12 seconds to understand that her marriage had not just been a betrayal of the heart. 3 months ago, while Caroline was in her second trimester, attending prenatal yoga twice a week and choosing between 2 shades of warm white for the nursery walls, Grant had transferred ownership of the Lakeshore Drive property into a corporate entity called Meridian Residential Holdings, LLC. The house was no longer in his name. It was no longer in either of their names. It was technically a corporate asset. Caroline was 33 weeks pregnant and living in a house she had no legal claim to. "How do you know this?" she asked. "I'm a family law paralegal," Stella said. "I ran the property records this morning after you told me what he said. Caroline, this was not an impulse. He has been planning this. The room did not tilt this time. It went absolutely still. He planned it. While I was choosing paint colors for the nursery, while I was reading baby name books out loud to him in bed, while I was building something in my mind that he had already decided to dismantle. She remembered a specific Saturday in November, 7 months ago. She had shown him the nursery mood board on her laptop. Warm whites and soft natural wood tones and a small reading chair by the window. He had looked at it for a long moment. He had said, "Whatever you want, Caro." She had been so pleased. She had thought he was being supportive. "Whatever you want, Caro," because he had already decided she would be leaving. She called Fletcher Wynne that same afternoon. His office was on Michigan Avenue, 32nd floor, with a view of the lake that on another day she might have admired. Fletcher was 45, silver-templed, with the measured demeanor of someone who had sat across from more disasters than he could count, and had learned not to react to the volume, only to the facts. Carolyn sat across from him in her maternity blouse and her good earrings and laid out the facts. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he opened a legal pad. "Mrs. Ashford," he said, "first, you have not been evicted from anything. You are still the legal spouse. You are still residing in the marital home. You have rights that supersede that LLC structure under Illinois marital property law." He paused. He may have been planning, but he planned without a very good attorney. Something unknotted slightly in her chest. "Second," Fletcher continued, "the corporate transfer of the property may constitute dissipation of marital assets. That is a significant factor in an Illinois divorce. The timing, during your pregnancy, makes it worse for him, not better." "He does not know, I know," Caroline said. "Good," Fletcher said. "Keep it that way." She drove home along the lake. February light was flat and silver over the water, the kind of light that made everything look like a photograph of itself. She pulled into the driveway of the Lakeshore Drive house and sat there for a long moment with the engine running. She remembered buying this house. She remembered the negotiations, Grant's excitement when they got it under asking. The first night they spent here, sleeping on an air mattress on the bedroom floor because the furniture had not arrived yet. She had laughed so much that night. She had thought, "This is it. This is our life beginning." She went inside. She started dinner because routine was what she had right now. She was making pasta. Without thinking, the same pasta she had made the night Grant came home from Riva and told her it was too salty. When her phone rang, it was a number she did not recognize. She almost did not answer, but something made her pick up. The landscape architect's instinct, maybe, the habit of reading environments, of trusting what the room is telling you. "Is this Carolina Ashford?" The voice was young, female, a little nervous. "Yes. My name is Petra Calloway. I used to work with Vivian Sparks." A pause. "I don't know if you know who I am." "I don't," Caroline said, carefully. "I know what's happening with your husband, and I know things that—" "Look, I am sorry. I did not know she was doing this to someone who was pregnant until I saw the photo of your baby shower on a mutual friend's Instagram. And I could not call." Caroline turned off the stove. She sat down at the kitchen island. "Tell me everything," she said. What Petra told her took 40 minutes and rewrote the entire architecture of the last year. Vivian Sparks was not a woman swept up in a complicated love. She was a woman who had identified Grant Ashford as a target 18 months ago, researched his marriage and his assets and his psychological vulnerabilities, and executed a deliberate strategy. She had told Petra herself in the early days when she still trusted her, that she planned to be the only Mrs. Ashford within 2 years. She had tracked Grant's schedule. She had engineered situations. She was the one who had suggested the LLC transfer. She had a real estate law background, and she knew exactly how to use it. She talks about your house, Petra said quietly. She has photos of it saved on her phone. She calls it our future home. The pasta water was still warm on the stove. She does not know I am calling you, Petra said. We had a falling out. She is not who I thought she was. She is not who anyone thinks she is. Caroline wrote down everything Petra told her, every date, every detail. When she hung up, she called Fletcher Wynn's after-hours line and left a message. Then she called Stella. It is not a love affair, she said. It is a hostile acquisition. Stella was silent for 3 full seconds. Then she said, if Vivian suggested the LLC and she has a real estate law background, there may be other assets we do not know about yet. We need a forensic accountant. Find me the best one you know, Caroline said. His name is Douglas Merritt, Stella said. He is very good and very discreet. I will call him tonight. Do that, Caroline said. She turned the stove back on. She finished making the pasta. She sat, alone at the kitchen table, and ate every bite, slowly and deliberately, with the particular intention of a woman who has decided she will not stop eating, will not stop sleeping, will not stop functioning, because that is exactly what they are counting on. She washed the dish. She dried it. She put it away. He let me fall in love with a future he never intended to share, she thought. He let me choose the paint color. He let me say the name. We had been saying Henry. She went upstairs. She sat in the nursery rocking chair in the dark for 20 minutes and let herself feel all of it. Every layer of it. The grief and the fury and the disbelief and the particular grief that sits underneath all the others, which is the grief for the person you believed someone was. Then she got up. She went to bed. She slept. I deserved better than this, she thought, just before she did. I know that. Whatever happens next, I know that. Douglas Merritt needed 3 weeks. Caroline did not have 3 weeks. The baby was due in 7 weeks. She had no independent income since taking maternity leave from the architecture firm 14 months ago. Grant had begun making carefully worded remarks about the practical realities of the situation in the tone of a man who believes that money is both the problem and the solution to every problem he creates. But she had Fletcher, and Fletcher, it turned out, was very good at moving quickly when he was angry enough, because Fletcher had begun to see what Douglas would later confirm in full. Grant Ashford had been systematically moving money, not dramatically, not in ways that would raise flags on a surface review. The way you move money when you have very good advisors and a very long runway and absolute confidence that no one is watching. $12,000 consulting fees paid to shell companies, investment accounts restructured on paper as business expenses, a Cayman account that appeared in a document Petra had photographed on Vivian's laptop during what Vivian had believed was a casual visit between friends. By the end of week 2, Douglas's preliminary report showed approximately $4 million in assets quietly repositioned over the last 18 months. Since before the pregnancy, Caroline calculated backward in Fletcher's office with a sensation like stepping through ice. Since before they had even started trying. She was 35 weeks pregnant. The baby was pressing up under her ribcage. She breathed through it. He started planning this before we started trying to have a baby, she said. Fletcher did not answer immediately. He was a man who chose his words with precision. The timeline of the transfers does appear to predate the pregnancy, he said. She looked out the window at Michigan Avenue. The street below was full of ordinary people going about ordinary days, none of whom knew that a woman on the 32nd floor was discovering that her marriage had been a fiction for longer than she had understood. I pushed for the baby, she thought. I wanted it. I was the one who said, "Let's try this year." And he agreed. He nodded, and he held me, and he agreed. And the whole time he was building a door out. He let me build a nursery in a house he was already planning to take from me. He let me choose the furniture. He let me say the name. We had been saying Henry. The anger arrived now. Not the teary, confused anger of the first days. Something colder and more structural. The kind of anger that has a foundation beneath it. The kind of anger you can build something on. She had been operating carefully, quietly. She had not confronted Grant since the morning of the baby shower. She had allowed him to believe she was simply hurt and uncertain, the way he expected her to be. She had accepted his flowers. He sent flowers twice. She put them in a vase in the kitchen and did not look at them. And his carefully managed texts about taking time to process and figuring out a path forward that works for everyone. He did not know she had an attorney. He did not know about Petra. He did not know about Douglas. Thursday arrived. Grant called at 10 in the morning. "Vivian and I are coming by this afternoon," he said. "Around 2. I think it is important for the three of us to sit down and have a civilized conversation." "She is not coming into my home," Caroline said. "Caroline, that woman planned this. She targeted you specifically. She has photographs of my house on her phone, and she calls it our future home. I have documentation, Grant. I have a forensic accountant, and I have an attorney. And if Vivian Sparks sets one foot on this property today, my attorney will be adding trespassing to a list that is already quite long." A long silence. "Where did you—" He stopped himself. "You have been talking to someone. I have been doing exactly what I should have done 8 months ago," she said, "getting a very clear picture of my situation." Another silence. Then quietly, "I did not want it to go this way." "No?" she said. "You wanted it to go your way. Those are different things." She paused. "Grant, does your mother know?" The pause that followed told her everything. She called Bridget Ashford herself. Grant's mother was 62, formidable, and had never particularly warmed to Caroline. But Bridget Ashford, operated by a strict internal code of dignity and propriety, and when Caroline told her calmly and factually what her son had done and planned to do, the silence on the other end of the phone was the silence of a woman revising her understanding of her own family. "He allowed a woman to use our family home as the setting for her plans," Caroline said. "He is 38 years old with a baby on the way." "I did not know," Bridget said finally. Her voice was very controlled. "Caroline, I want you to know, I did not know." "I believe you," Caroline said. When they hung up, Caroline sat at the kitchen island for a long time. She was not satisfied. She was not victorious. She was exhausted in the way that only comes from discovering that the geography of your own life has been wrong for longer than you understood. But she was not afraid. "I deserved better than this," she thought again. "I know that now. Whatever happens next, I know that." That evening, Douglas called Fletcher with an update. There was one more account they had not traced yet. The money in it was significant, more than all the others combined, and it had been opened 6 weeks before the wedding. It happened on a Tuesday at 11:47 at night. Caroline woke to the sound of a car door. She lay still in the dark for a moment. Then she got up. She stood at the bedroom window. The driveway was lit by the motion sensor light. Grant's Tesla was there. He had apparently been coming and going while she slept. which she had not allowed herself to fully reckon with until now. Beside it was a car she did not recognize, and standing beside that car, in her driveway, in front of her home, was Vivian Sparks. Caroline recognized her immediately. Vivian was 27 years old, polished and self-assured in a camel coat that probably cost more than a month of Caroline's old architecture salary. She was laughing at something Grant had said, a particular kind of laugh that implies the two people sharing it are on the same side of something, looking outward at a world that does not yet understand the situation as well as they do. Grant was carrying boxes. Her husband was at her home at midnight, moving boxes out, with his mistress standing in the driveway like she was already measuring the rooms. Caroline watched. She watched for a moment she would never forget and would never be able to describe accurately, because what she felt in that moment did not have one name. It had several, arriving in layers, the way cold arrives when you step outside in January. First, the surface of it, then the depth. First, disbelief. Even knowing everything she knew, the actuality of it was incomprehensible. She had known. She had known for weeks, and still. Second, rage. The kind that starts behind the wee eyes and moves outward through the chest, into the arms, into the hands. The kind that has weight. Third, underneath everything else, grief. Not grief for Grant. Grief for the version of her life she had believed in. The morning light in this house. The nursery down the hall. The baby name they had said out loud together in bed on a Sunday morning, testing the sound of it. Henry. She did not go downstairs. She did not open the door or press her hands against the glass or do any of the things her body was suggesting. She went back to bed. She lay in the dark, with her hand flat on her stomach, and she breathed in and out. The baby shifted and settled. I know, she thought. I know, I know, I know. She called Fletcher at 7 the next morning. He called back by 7:15. She was on the property, she said. Did she go inside? I do not think so, but Grant went in and out with boxes, which constitutes unauthorized removal of shared marital property, Fletcher said. Good. Caroline, I think we are at the point where you need to consider the next stage. They are escalating. He brought her to the property. That was not accidental. He is trying to push me out, she said. Make it uncomfortable enough that I leave voluntarily. Yes, Fletcher said. Which is why we are not going to let you leave voluntarily. But I can... Her voice caught. She stopped, steadied herself. I cannot stay there, Fletcher. It is my home, and I cannot stay in it any more. I lie awake, listening for his car. I cannot keep doing that to myself. Not now, not this close to the end. A long pause. Then we move, Fletcher said, but strategically, not because he pushed you, on your terms, on your timeline, with full legal documentation of exactly why. She called her mother. Dot answered on the first ring, as she always did when she was already worried. Mom, Caroline said, I need you. Dot drove the 2 hours in record time. They packed together. Her clothes, her documents, the items she had photographed and cataloged for Fletcher's records over the previous 2 weeks. The baby things she had assembled over months, with such careful hope. The soft blankets, the tiny white onesies, the mobile with the wooden animals that she had wrapped in tissue paper and set in the corner of the nursery because she could not bear to leave it behind. They worked without talking much. Dot had learned, in 58 years, that there is a time for talking and a time for packing, and this was a time for packing. She carried things. She wrapped things. She did not once say she was sorry or that she had known or that Grant had never been good enough. though all three of those things were true. When they were done, Caroline stood in the doorway of the nursery. The bassinet. The soft yellow walls she had painted herself on a Saturday in October, Grant downstairs watching football, her mother on the phone giving color advice, the small wooden rocking chair, the window that faced the back garden where the hydrangeas would come back in April, regardless of what happened between now and then. She did not say the name out loud, but she held it for a moment, quietly, in the doorway. Then she closed the door, picked up her bag, and walked out. Grant pulled into the driveway as they were loading the car. He got out slowly. He looked at the bags in the trunk. He looked at Caroline's face, and then at Dot's face, and Dot looked back at him, with an expression that required no translation. "Caroline, I am not leaving," she said. "My attorney is documenting this as a temporary relocation due to hostile conditions in the marital home. I will be back, and this house will be part of the settlement." "Vivian," he started. "Don't," she said. "I saw her in my driveway at midnight. We both know what that was, so don't." She got in the car. Dot drove. They stopped at a motel off the highway at 2 in the morning because Dot was exhausted and Caroline's back was aching in a deep, grinding way that made every pothole feel significant, and neither of them could go another hour. Caroline sat in the parking lot while her mother went to check in. The motel sign blinked orange, on and off, on and off. The parking lot was empty and silent except for the distant sound of the highway. She was 35 weeks pregnant. She was sitting in a motel parking lot at 2 in the morning. She had left her house with a suitcase. This is real, she thought. This is actually what is happening. She put her hand on her stomach. The baby was still. "Okay," she said out loud, to herself, to the baby, to no one and everyone. "Okay, we are going to be okay." She said it the way you say things you need to become true. She said it until the saying of it felt like something she could hold on to. In the motel room, while Dot slept, Caroline opened her laptop. She found an email that Petra had forwarded from an anonymous account. Grant to Vivian 4 weeks ago. The email discussed the timeline for the transition. It referenced the Cayman account that Vivian had helped establish, the account with the money that predated the wedding. Caroline photographed the screen with her phone. She texted it to Fletcher at 2:47 in the morning. Then she closed the laptop. She lay down beside her sleeping mother. She stared at the ceiling while the orange light of the motel sign pulsed through the curtains. In, out, in, out. I am not crazy, she thought. I know what I saw. I have always known what I saw. Starting over feels impossible, but staying feels worse. I know that. I have always known that too. Nora Davenport set down her clipboard at the 36-week appointment and said, "How are you sleeping?" "Badly," Caroline said. "On a scale of 1 to 10, how is your stress level?" Caroline thought about it honestly. 11, she said. Nora nodded. She did not look surprised. She did not look alarmed in a way that would be alarming. She had the particular gift of people in her profession, the ability to hold difficult information with steadiness. "I want to talk to you about some things," Nora said, "and I need you to hear them the way a doctor is saying them." She paused. "The baby is healthy. You are healthy. Stress affects pregnancy outcomes, and I want to acknowledge that directly because pretending it does not would not be honest. But you are managing it. You are eating. You are here. The human body is remarkably robust in crisis. Women have babies in far worse circumstances than yours, and they are fine, and their babies are fine." "I know," Caroline said. "I know you know it. I am saying it anyway, because sometimes we need to hear our own knowledge from someone else's mouth." Nora picked up her clipboard. "Call me if anything changes. Blood pressure spike. reduced movement, anything that feels different from your normal. Promise me. I promise, Caroline said. She signed the lease on the Lincoln Park apartment 3 days after the motel. 1,200 square feet on the second floor, big windows, hardwood floors the color of warm honey, a second bedroom with a window that faced a courtyard where someone had planted window boxes that were bare now but would bloom in spring. It was modest by the standards of the Lakeshore Drive house. It was hers, she told Stella first. Stella walked through it and said, "It's small." "It's mine," Caroline said. Stella was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Yeah, it is." Caroline set up the apartment over the course of a week, and the physical act of it was more stabilizing than anything else she could have done. She assembled furniture, she hung things on walls, she decided where the kitchen things lived. She made decisions about her own space and acted on them and watched the rooms become something. She understood space. She had spent her career understanding it. She knew how to make a place feel like a place. The second bedroom took longer. She stood in it one evening with the room empty around her, the window showing the dark courtyard, the walls bare and quiet. She let herself think about Henry. The bassinet was in Dot's car. Her mother had been making quiet, documented trips to retrieve what was legally Caroline's, guided by Fletcher's careful instructions. It would arrive next week. He will have a room, she thought. He will have a room that belongs to him and no one is trying to take. Calvin Ashford called on a Wednesday afternoon. He was Grant's older brother, 41 years old, the one who had become an architect while Grant became a billionaire. Caroline had always liked Calvin. He was quieter than his brother, less polished, more careful with his words. "I want to say I am sorry," he said. "I found out. Not everything, but enough. A few weeks ago, and I did not call. That was wrong." "Why are you calling now?" Caroline asked, not unkindly. "Because my mother called me this morning and told me what he did with the house. The LLC. A pause. "That is not how we were raised. I know that does not help you. I just need you to know that you are not alone in finding this shocking." "Is he listening to anyone?" Caroline asked. A long pause. "No," Calvin said. "She has a great deal of influence over him right now. I do not recognize him." "Neither do I," Caroline said. "I have not for a while." She made an appointment with Dr. Andrea Walsh on a Thursday afternoon. The session lasted 90 minutes, which was longer than the single session she had booked. At the end, Dr. Walsh asked what Caroline needed most right now. Caroline thought about it honestly. "To trust my own judgment again," she said. "What made you stop?" Dr. Walsh asked. "I ignored things for a long time. I told myself I was being paranoid, suspicious, difficult. He was very good at making me feel like the problem. What would you tell someone else in that situation?" Caroline thought about the closet, the blouse, the cologne in the box, the gym bag shifted slightly to the left, all the things she had seen and overridden. "I would tell them they were not crazy," she said. "I would tell them they knew." "Then tell yourself," Dr. Walsh said. She drove home from that appointment with all 4 windows down, which was objectively irrational in February in Chicago, but she did it anyway. The cold air came rushing in, sharp and real, and for the first time in weeks, she felt something that did not have a precise name, but was adjacent to relief. That evening, Fletcher called. "The judge has reviewed the emergency motion," he said. "The LLC transfer is frozen pending divorce proceedings. The house cannot be sold, transferred, or further encumbered." Grant's attorney filed an objection. The judge dismissed it. Caroline sat down in the small kitchen of her new apartment with its warm honey floors and its window over the courtyard. "He underestimated you," Fletcher said. "And me. What happens now?" she asked. Now, Fletcher said, we make him understand exactly what he is dealing with. Henry James Ashford arrived at 3:22 in the morning on a Tuesday, 6 days before his due date. In a blur of fluorescent lights and the grip of her mother's hand and the steady, authoritative voice of Nora Davenport saying, "You are doing incredibly well, Caroline. One more push, you're almost there." She had asked Grant to come. She would never be entirely able to explain why, except that she believed the child deserved the father's presence at his beginning, and that some things are larger than the marriage that produced them. He came. He sat in the corner of the delivery room in a blue chair, and he watched his son arrive in the world. When the nurse placed Henry in her arms, Caroline looked down at him. His face was very red and very serious. His fists were closed tight. He weighed 7 pounds and 2 ounces, and he was, in the particular way of newborns, absolute, complete, a fact. I would have burned the whole marriage down for you anyway, she thought. And I did. She did not say it out loud, but she felt it move through her, clean and complete, like the last piece of something clicking into place. Grant held Henry once, briefly, with the careful, anxious posture of someone holding something he does not know how to hold. Henry screamed. Caroline took him back. Her mother was there when Grant left. Dot watched him walk out of the room without saying anything. Then she reached over and squeezed Caroline's hand once, hard, and held on. The hospital stay was 3 days. During those 3 days, the proceeding that Fletcher had been building so carefully began to move. Douglas Merritt's full forensic report was filed with the court. It documented $4.7 million in hidden and transferred assets. It documented the LLC structure in full. It documented Vivian Sparks's traceable involvement in the financial restructuring, her real estate law credentials, her communications with the holding company connected to the Cayman account, the email Petra had photographed and forwarded from a motel parking lot at 2:47 in the morning. Vivian Sparks, the court now understood, was not simply a mistress. She was also exposed to fraud proceedings. This was not what she had planned. This was also when Grant's attorney began making settlement sounds. Caroline was nursing Henry in the hospital room. The small weight of him, the extraordinary ordinariness of this thing that was also entirely extraordinary. When Fletcher called, "They have made an offer," he said. "Tell me," she said. He told her. It was, by any measure, a significant number. It included the Lakeshore Drive house, or her choice of a cash equivalent. It included a custody framework. It included structured support payments for the next 18 years. It was the offer of a man who had just realized that the container he put his documents in had holes. "What do you think?" Fletcher asked. "I think it is not enough," she said. "Counter." A pause. "How much?" She thought about the nursery she had painted herself on a Saturday in October. The pasta she threw away, thinking she had lost her sense of taste. The phone check. Lock. Unlock. Lock. Every time she was afraid. The motel parking lot. The orange light through the curtains. Henry's first fist, curled against her collarbone. She told Fletcher the number. Another pause. Then, "I will make the call." Calvin called the day she came home from the hospital. "I have done something," he said carefully. "I had a conversation with the Ashford Meridian Board's Ethics Committee. I thought they should know about the Cayman account. I thought they should know about Vivian's conflict of interest in her VP role." He paused. "Grant is going to find out very soon that the board has been notified, and that it came from family." Another pause. "He needs to reckon with what he has done. I thought the reckoning should be thorough." Caroline looked down at Henry asleep against her chest. The particular weight and warmth of him, the extraordinary fact of him. "Thank you, Calvin," she said. "How is he?" Calvin asked. "Perfect," she said. "He is completely perfect." Grant's most important business event of the year was the Ashford Meridian Annual Gala. 500 people. The Peninsula Hotel, the event at which he announced major acquisitions, accepted industry awards, and presented the company's vision for the coming year. This year's gala fell 3 weeks after Henry's birth. Caroline was not going. Caroline was home with her son in the Lincoln Park apartment in the nursing chair Dot had helped her assemble on a rainy afternoon, watching February soften toward March through the courtyard window. But the gala happened without her, as many things would now, and what happened there was reported back to her in pieces over the following 48 hours. This is what happened. The board's ethics investigation, triggered by Calvin's notification, had moved with the speed of people who are embarrassed and angry in equal measure. The Cayman account and Vivian's involvement in its establishment constituted a breach of fiduciary duty. She was a VP of the company. She could not be directing assets into a private account connected to the CEO's personal financial arrangements. The board had spent 10 days examining every thread. 3 hours before the gala began, the board's lead counsel delivered a letter to Grant in his suite at the Peninsula. The letter informed him that effective immediately, Vivian Sparks was on administrative leave pending investigation. It further informed him that the board was convening a special session to review his own role in the financial arrangements. Grant attended the gala anyway. What else could he do? Bridget Ashford attended. Calvin attended. Dozens of people who had known Grant for years, who had watched him build his empire, who had attended his wedding and sent flowers when Caroline announced her pregnancy, they all attended, and they could see in the particular way that people can see things once they know what they are looking at, that something was wrong. Grant delivered his address. His voice was steady. His suit was impeccable. But he did not mention Vivian, who had been expected on his arm, who was instead 2 miles away in her apartment, receiving a formal notification from the company's legal team. At the reception, Bridget Ashford moved through the room with the posture of a woman who has made peace with something difficult and intends to be on the right side of it. She stopped near a cluster of board members. "I raised my son," she said, to no one in particular, with everyone listening. "I am not going to pretend I raised him well enough. I am going to do what I can now." The gala ended. The cleanup crews moved in. The Peninsula returned to its ordinary business. Caroline received the summary from Calvin at midnight. She was awake, as one is with a 3-week-old, nursing Henry in the dark of the small apartment. The courtyard outside was quiet. A light was on in a window across the way. Calvin told her everything in his measured, careful way. "It is not over," he said, "but the lid has come off." "Good," she said. Henry made a small sound and shifted against her. She adjusted him, and he settled. "How is he?" Calvin asked. "Perfect," she said. "He is always perfect. I would like to meet him," Calvin said. "If that would be all right?" "Yes," she said. "I think that would be good for him. Lasalle?" The counteroffer Fletcher had sent was accepted 4 days after the gala. The terms were these: the Lake Shore Drive house to be to be sold, with 63% of the proceeds going to Caroline. The Lincoln Park apartment she had already established as her primary residence, to be held mortgage-free for Henry's benefit. A support structure that Stella, upon hearing the full terms, described as honestly and legitimately fair. A custody framework that gave Grant access and responsibility in equal measure. Caroline had never wanted to keep Henry from his father. She had wanted to ensure that his father showed up as one. Grant accepted because he no longer had the leverage to refuse, because the board was watching, because his mother had made her position clear, because Calvin's quiet intervention had cost him more than anything dramatic could have, and because somewhere, beneath all of it, in whatever part of Grant Ashford was still capable of honest reckoning, he was facing what he had done to a woman who had been carrying his child and had trusted him completely. The acceptance did not feel like triumph. It felt like a door closing on a room she could finally stop trying to fix. Fletcher called that same afternoon with one final piece of news. The Cayman account that predated the wedding, the original hidden asset, the one opened 6 weeks before Grant put a ring on Caroline's finger, had been ruled commingled marital property by the court. The entire balance was subject to division. The balance was $2.1 million. He thought we would never find it, Fletcher said. Petra found it, Caroline said. Yes, Fletcher said. She did. A long pause. Caroline, Fletcher said, of all the cases I have handled, and I have handled a great many of them, I want you to know that this one has been different for me. He paused again. You did not get angry. You got organized. Those are different things. And you knew the difference from the very beginning. Thank you, Fletcher, she said. She hung up the phone. She sat in the nursing chair in the quiet apartment. Henry was asleep in the bassinet. Her mother's trips had retrieved it, and it now sat in the second bedroom, under the window that would look out onto blooming window boxes in a few months. The apartment was small and quiet and entirely hers. Somewhere along the way, she thought, I became invisible. And then I had to become visible again. Only this time, I decided what that looked like. Spring came to Lincoln Park the way it always does in Chicago, tentatively first, then with sudden conviction, then all at once, the way the best things arrive, fully and without apology. Henry was 6 weeks old when Caroline carried him to the park for the first time. She had him bundled in a yellow onesie, yellow specifically, the same shade as the baby shower tablecloths, as the nursery walls she had painted herself, as the particular color of beginning she had decided was hers now. She sat on a bench in the April sun with him against her chest and watched the lake in the distance, doing its ordinary, eternal thing. She had been thinking about work. Not immediately. He was 6 weeks old, and the settlement had given her the financial stability to be intentional about the timing. But she had been opening her old project files in the evenings after he was asleep. She had been calling contacts at the architecture firm. She had been thinking about the urban green space proposal she had been developing when everything stopped, the park redesign on the north side that she had believed in completely. She had also filed the LLC paperwork for her own practice last week. Ashford Landscape Architecture. She was keeping the name, her professional name, the one she had built on her own work before any of this. She was keeping it because it was hers, and she had made it mean something before Grant, and she would make it mean more after. Stella arrived with 2 coffees and the particular expression of someone who has something to say. So, Stella said, sitting down, I have to tell you something. Tell me, Caroline said. I saw Vivian yesterday at the Whole Foods on Dearborn. Stella wrapped both hands around her coffee. She paused, searching for the right word. She looked like someone whose plan did not work out. Caroline thought about this for a moment. Good, she said. Then, after a pause, also a little sad. Sad? Stella stared at her. After everything? She aimed for something that was not hers, Caroline said. She built a plan around a man who was always going to be the kind of man who could be targeted by a plan like that. She is 27 years old, and she is going to spend a long time being the woman who did this. She looked down at Henry. His face was very serious, as it always was, studying the light through the leaves above them. I am not going to spend a long time being that. I get to just be his maestra, his mother. That is not nothing. Stella was quiet for a moment. When did you get wise? Parking lots, Caroline said. I did a great deal of thinking in parking lots. She had one final session with Dr. Walsh the following week, before transitioning to monthly appointments. Walsh asked what had shifted most in her sense of herself. I trusted a version of my life more than I trusted my own perception of it, Caroline said. I could see what was true. I saw the signs for months, and I kept overriding what I saw because the story I had built felt more real than what I was actually experiencing. She paused. I was my own warden. The prison door was unlocked the whole time. I could have walked out earlier. You walked out when you were ready, Dr. Walsh said. Yes. Next time I will be faster. Dr. Walsh made a note. There will not be a next time, not because you will never trust again. You will, but because now you know how quickly you are capable of trusting yourself. And that is the thing that protects you, not suspicion, not walls. The ability to trust your own perception. Caroline drove home from that appointment with Henry asleep in his car seat, his face very serious, even in sleep, his small fists at rest. She took the long way around the lake, the way she used to when she needed to think. The water was very blue. The city moved along the shore with its usual indifferent energy. She thought about the woman who had stood in a closet holding a red satin blouse and not yet known what she was capable of. She had been capable all along. She had just not known it. She was capable, she thought. She just did not know yet. Somewhere along the way, I became invisible. And then I had to become visible again. Only this time, I decided what that looked like. I decided, not him, not her, BM. She pulled into the parking lot of her building. She sat for a moment in the quiet car, with the engine off, Henry asleep in the back, the April light coming through the windshield at a warm angle. She had a meeting tomorrow with a city parks commissioner about the green space proposal. She had 3 potential clients who had reached out through the practice's new website. She had a son who was 6 weeks old and weighed 9 pounds and 3 ounces and had opinions about morning light and the specific mobile above his crib. She had built all of this from a motel parking lot. She unbuckled her seatbelt. She got out of the car. She went around to the back and carefully lifted Henry from his car seat, still sleeping, his warm weight against her shoulder. She carried him inside. 6 months later, September, the Lakeshore Drive house sold at auction in July for more than the appraised value. One of those strange silver linings that sometimes arrive without being asked for, in the shape of a number that felt briefly impossible and then immediately felt like responsibility. Caroline put most of it in trust for Henry's education. She used a portion to fully capitalize the practice. She took Dot to Italy for 10 days. It was Dot's first time outside the country. They ate everything. They walked until their feet refused to carry them any further, and then sat in cafes and ate more. In Florence, on the last night, over wine and bread and the particular quality of light that comes from a long and good day, Dot set down her glass and said, I owe you an apology. Caroline looked up. Your father, Dot said. When he did what he did, I stayed 2 years longer than I should have. I used to tell myself I was protecting you, keeping the family together. She looked at her wine. But now I think I was teaching you that you stay, that you wait for things to get bad enough before you leave. She paused. You got out faster than I did. I want you to know I am proud of that. Caroline reached across the table and took her mother's hand. You got out, she said. That is what matters. I got out in 1997, Dot said. You got out in 2024 with a newborn baby and no income and a legal battle. You are braver than me. I had a better attorney, Caroline said. They both laughed. They ate more bread. Henry had, at 6 months, developed distinct and firm opinions about the world. He preferred mornings to afternoons. He preferred being carried facing outward so he could observe everything with the serious attention he gave to all things. He preferred the mobile above his crib that played something gentle and repetitive. He had Grant's eyes and Caroline's jaw and Dot's particular stubborn focus, and he was, in the assessment of everyone who met him, wonderful. Grant was in his life. This was important to say, and Caroline said it to herself sometimes because it mattered. He came on his designated days. He held his son with increasing confidence. He was learning, slowly and imperfectly, to show up as a father. Whether he would have learned this without the weight of everything that had happened, she could not know. Bridget Ashford, who had quietly and firmly placed herself on Caroline's side of the equation in the months following the gala, brought casseroles on Tuesday evenings and took Henry for Sunday morning so Caroline could sleep past 6. It was not the family Caroline had planned, but families, she had learned, were not what you planned. They were what you built from what was actually there. Vivienne Sparks had quietly resigned from Ashford Meridian in April as part of an agreement that kept the fraud matter from becoming public litigation. She was, by Petra's account, working at a smaller firm in another city, building a different version of whatever it was she was trying to build. She was not in Grant's life. He appeared to have understood, in the aftermath, what he had actually been maneuvered by. Calvin had become a regular presence. He came on Sunday afternoons sometimes, when Bridget had Henry and Caroline, had the apartment to herself, and the light came through the big windows at the angle she had chosen this particular apartment for. He brought coffee. He asked about the practice. He told her about his own projects, a community center he was designing in Pilsen, a school addition in Evanston. They talked about architecture and cities and the specific satisfaction of making something in space that would outlast you. He was the family she had not expected to keep. Fletcher sent a handwritten note in September on his personal stationery. It said, "Of all the cases I have handled over the years, yours is one I will think about for a long time. You did not get angry. You got organized. Those are different things, and you knew the difference from the very first day." She pinned it to the corkboard above her desk at the practice. The practice occupied a second-floor space in Wicker Park with tall windows and exposed brick and a view of a street she had always liked for its particular combination of the old and the new. She had painted the walls herself on a Saturday in August. She had assembled the furniture. She had decided where everything lived.